A few days ago, I was watching this old movie from 1993 called Cliffhanger, starring Sylvester Stallone. Do you remember that movie?
I did. Actually, I remember that it's one of those movies that I actually went to the theater to see, and I was,
Ah,
I guess, at the time, like almost 10 years old or something. And it's very clearly, I can remember that it's a
yeah.
movie I went to see in a theater, actually.
Brilliant. Oh my God, man, this is just incredible. I didn't. So, the reason why I even watched the movie was for exactly that reason. So, it showed up on Netflix, and I'm like, oh my God, this was the first movie that I saw in a theater.
For you too?
And we were like, yeah, and we were 7 or 8 years old. And for some reason, this movie was very popular. I remember mom was never really big on going to the theaters. It always gave her a headache, all the loud sounds. So anytime we wanted to go to the movies, it would be just dad, my older brother, and I. And Cliffhanger was the very first movie that the three of us sat on our Bajaj scooter and went riding to. There's this theater called Ludo in Bangalore, which is an old. I don't think that theater is there anymore, and a lot of the old style theaters have gone away. Actually, I remember when we were in college, right? There's this theater on MG Road called Plaza. Your mom actually got us tickets because she knew the owner of Plaza, and it was one of the last showings before they tore down that building. And we got free tickets to Passion of the Christ,
Oh my
which was an
God.
extremely gory movie.
Hey, it's a free movie. At the time, you take what you get.
That's correct. That's true. you can't ask for too much as a as a poor student.
Wait, has anything changed? If anybody lets you go watch a free movie now, I think we'd still take the offer.
Actually, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Free is always good. That thing
Free is always
is
good.
one of the fundamental facts of life.
Sometime in 2015, right? I started. There's this podcast called as Hello Internet, which came out, and I used to love this podcast actually. And I don't know, for some reason they just stopped doing it. It was one of the top 5 podcasts, I think. I don't know why they stopped it, but so in Hello Internet, I came up one of their episodes. They spoke about this concept of the 4 light bulbs. Okay, so let me just explain what this concept is. So what they say is that if you compartmentalize your life into 4 buckets, and let's say the buckets are family, friends, your career, and your hobbies, right? So the 4 light bulbs, this concept gives you like a framework of how you can split your time and how you should look at your energy. And what it says is that, hey, you're given only 100 watts of power. That's your budget. And you can choose to glow your 4 light bulbs equally. So each would be like 25 watts. And then, so if you do that, then you have good work life balance, but you're not particularly doing really good at work or really good at life, right? I mean, sort of you're splitting your energies equally amongst all of these buckets. If But the point is that if you choose to run your work or your career light bulb really hot, then you're going to do it at the cost of family and friends and your hobbies and things like that.
So if you have 50, let's say you have 50 watts for your work light bulb, now you have only 50 watts left for all the other light bulbs.
That's
So
correct.
you have to burn, or you have to set them to be dimmer than
Mhm.
the brightest bulb, because the total amount of energy you can spend is 100 watts, right?
Right, correct. So now, this idea of 4 light bulbs has really stuck with me since then. And I think that it's a pretty good framework to look at your life and to look at how you're spending your energies. So what do you think about it in general?
Yeah, I did listen to Hello Internet for light bulbs because I think it was episode number 3.
Hmm.
So it was nice because I did go back to it recently and listen to it some more. And I also tried Googling this concept. I'm not sure really where it comes from because I I didn't find too much about the four light bulbs idea anywhere else. But it's a good, interesting idea.
Yeah, I don't think it is necessarily original. I think this idea of splitting your life into buckets, I think this has existed in different forms for a long time, but it's just that the way these the hosts of these podcasts, right, Brady and Gray, just that the way they presented it, something about it just stuck in my mind.
It's nice. This analogy is good to me because you are given a certain power budget, and that's kind of how we operate as well, right? We don't
Hmm.
have infinite resources in time or energy or money or anything like that. There's always a constraint. And so, this four buckets idea or four light bulbs idea sets a constraint on what you can do ultimately. That's the nice thing about it.
It's also been helping me plan out life and set expectations within my family in a way. Like for example, you don't have to equally shine each of the bulbs, right? I mean, you can tell yourself, or you can tell your spouse or your significant other that, hey, look, I want to switch jobs, so for the next 6 months I'm going to intentionally shine my work light bulb a lot more so that I can succeed in this job change and get this job that I really want. And then in 6 months, if you are continuing to shine that bulb a lot more and then neglecting friends and family and everything else, then your spouse can sort of tap you on your shoulder and say, hey, I mean, we discussed this, so it's time to focus on the other stuff, and not just get carried away by work. So I think it's a good way to also set expectations, I think.
What are your four light bulbs? Let's start there.
Yeah, so my four light bulbs, it is work, hobbies, health, and I have friends and family as a single light bulb. These four have been my bulbs forever, right? I mean, that's never been a problem. But my problem has always been that I've struggled to balance these bulbs, especially when in my younger days, right? In the early 20s, when I was starting off my career, my problem was that I wanted to shine every light bulb to the max. And the fact that I could not do it used to cause me a ton of stress and anxiety, right? To give you an example, okay, we were starting off at work. I was a very ambitious engineer. I wanted to knock it out of the park, right? I wanted to be the undisputed champion at work. I wanted to be this know-it-all. I wanted to impress my manager, and my colleagues and so on. I'm burning the candle from both ends when it comes to work and nights and weekends and everything else. So while I'm doing that, while I want to be the undisputed champion at work, I also had a ton of hobbies. I had this group that I ran marathons and so on with. And I had my tech bros with whom I went for these weekend long hackathons or coding challenges. And all of this, I used to enjoy all of this a ton. Right. And I also had my band, which was actively doing shows. So on a given weekend, if I had a commitment with my band, my tech bros would go and still do that hackathons. And the fact that I was missing out on the other part of my life because I had this band commitment used to cause me a lot of anxiety. So instead of being in the moment and playing this music and enjoying being with the band, I'm neither here nor there. I'm not enjoying playing with the band, and I am regretting. Oh man, a few of these friends are traveling, and they're probably going hiking somewhere, and I'm not there with them. And I was never in a happy state of mind in a way, and it was very stressful and anxiety driven. So what are your four light bulbs?
I thought about it for some time and then I couldn't really put it into the framework of, friends or family and work and things like that. Because take this for example. For me, work is something I enjoy doing. And I also do all these other technical things on the side, some completely unrelated to my job that I also consider fun. So I kind of find it hard to separate work and hobbies sometimes, and they overlap and spill into each other sometimes. So here's how I divide my four light bulbs, right? So the first light bulb I would say I have is the purposeful work light bulb.
Purposeful work. Okay.
Yeah, this is anything that you do is a directed activity. Purposeful work could be doing your office work, um, even playing an instrument while you're practicing it. You could be doing chores is purposeful work. And that I think will always be the brightest bulb, right? So I'm not going to try to burn that dimly. Most of the time, this is the bulb that's going to burn brightest for me. And I realize that. Now, there are a few other light bulbs that should also burn brightly for me, at least occasionally. And at times, they can be dimly lit. So I'll tell you what those light bulbs are. So my second light bulb would be relaxation. So this is something that is not purposeful. It could be watching TV. And I don't think there's anything wrong in that. We can't be 100% productive. It's become a fad these days with all these productivity gurus online and getting your work done and how to manage your time and do everything and cram everything in a day. And like you say, anxiety builds, happiness goes away somehow.
It's called productivity porn.
Prod-
I
the
mean, there are
hustle
so many
culture.
YouTubers doing this. Yeah.
I know the whole hustle culture. You got to do something with your time. You have to do this. You have to do that. How I balance this and that. It's exhausting sometimes, even listening to this stuff. So for me, relaxation is a big deal. It has to be something you like watching TV. You can listen to music, even get on social media. It doesn't matter. I mean, you want to go and like read on Reddit for some time, or you want to scroll through Instagram and read some Facebook. Go do it. It's fine. But don't. This is where it becomes a key thing. Make sure that certain aspects are in control. If this relaxation thing via social media starts to burn too brightly, you should know that is a
Yeah.
problem. So not all light bulbs should
Beautiful.
always burn too bright.
I love
So
it. Mhm.
it's okay, right? But the other thing is that relaxation need not always be purposeless. And what I mean by that is you can read a book. You're doing that with the goal of trying to finish the book, but it's relaxing at the same time. So it's two birds and one stone. Nothing wrong with that, right? Or you're playing an instrument towards a goal and it so happens to be relaxing for you, good for you, right? So it's like it can serve two things. Like nothing is isolated anyway, everything overlaps with everything, right? So that's my second light bulb. But the third light bulb is a little bit generic also, and I call that interaction. Interaction is whether you spend time with your kids, family, your friends, you know, all these things. And it's something that we have to make sure we keep alive because, like we spoke in an earlier episode, right? We have all these people, our family, living in different parts of the world with stories of their own. And if we don't keep our ties to them, our life is not as meaningful as it could have been. We have to talk to our friends because they are having their own family, their own life. And if you want to catch up with them and have a deep, meaningful conversation, that can be really valuable in a lifetime. The feeling that you know what is going on in each other's lives, that's very important as I come more and more because you can work all the time. The purposeful work can be on all the time. You can start so many hobbies. You can become a really top person in your company, like rise up the career ladder. But in so many occasions, it becomes like a lonely rise to the top.
Right.
Uh, and you got your success, but you don't have interaction with people anymore. And you've lost a lot of life because of interaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fourth light bulb is something that I do not burn brightly at all. And I am working on this. And that is introspection.
Ooh. Oh man. Mm.
Because I never, until recently, stopped to think about anything. I really don't. I go to work, I come back, I work on my hobbies, I try to play guitar as well as I can, and I wrap it all up and see what I can do the next day. I'm always looking forward. So this is a problem to me because so many times, like when you tell me stories of stuff we did in the past, I have no recollection of doing it. And you know why that is? Because even once I never stopped to think and reflect on those stories and see like, oh man, that was like a good time we had, huh, growing up, like,
Yeah.
that was a, so I never do that. So this is something I really have to do more. Just walk around. Like the other day I was walking on the treadmill, I'm like, I don't want to keep consuming podcasts, consuming audiobooks, consuming TV. I mean, what's wrong when I'm on the treadmill? I just want to think. So part of this whole light bulb thinking I was doing on the treadmill is like this. This is when all this came to me. It's like, and even if sometimes it's just, daydream, it's fine. Just imagine how you're on this planet and whizzing through space at the moment, and you're like a small part of the greater universe. It's just fascinating to think about it at times. And I learned a lot of this from you, because I see like you write down a lot of your ideas in a notebook or in your iPad. You have so many like writings that you do of your own. It is fascinating to me. Like even now, when I try to write down something that I'm thinking, it doesn't come out right. It's just weird. I'm like, I really don't know what I'm thinking. That's the way to put it.
Yeah.
So those are my 4 light bulbs: purposeful work, relaxation, interaction, and introspection. Those are my 4.
This is great. This is so good. I mean, when I was thinking of what my 4 light bulbs are, I mean, you've actually presented a very different way to look at uh, compartmentalizing your life. This is actually, you've laid it out so well. I really like it. Actually, after listening to your 4 light bulbs, I think I have to go back and think, reflect on mine. I'm sure that
You can have yours.
I'm going to have to change some of these.
You don't have to change
I
it.
mean, I meant to say, like, the ideas that from the ideas that you're presented, I find it very appealing. No matter what your 4 light bulbs are, you need to spend some time calibrating them correctly. Or if you have deviated in one direction too far, then you need to sort of bring it back. What I mean is, if you take your relaxation bulb, for example, right? I mean, you said that there's nothing wrong with scrolling on Instagram and using that as your source of relaxation. But if you have this idea of light bulbs and the fact that, hey, you have limited power to distribute, then if you get consumed with social media, which is typically what happens with most people, right? They get very obsessed. They get, it ends up upsetting you. You see something there and it upsets you, and then it sits in your mind for weeks and weeks, and then only until you read the next news article on Facebook, which again sends you down the spiral once again. If you catch yourself then saying, wait a minute, okay, this Instagram and Facebook are supposed to be my relaxation bulb, and I've let it go way too far and it's consuming my life. So, and if you can use this framework to recalibrate, I think before you go too far down the spiral, I think you'll come back to reality.
Yeah. In a way, you can classify what you're doing in a day into one of these categories. It could be
Hmm.
different for everybody, but you just think and say, like, where did I spend my time today? And which of these parts did I spend my time today? And did I spend my time in all the sections that I consider important in my life?
Yeah.
That is what
Yeah.
it comes down to.
Right. So what you're saying is basically your purposeful work is from say 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then from 5 p.m. to say 7 p.m. or something like that. It's your relationships, like it's a family time with your kids, and then maybe after dinner, that's when lights are out and you have time for yourself. Then it's time for introspection and relaxation.
Sure. Yeah, that's one way to do it. It's an interesting point to bring up. Like, so at what scale should we apply these rules or
Mm.
frameworks? Should we apply them on a daily basis? Do you have to do introspect every day, or do you have to relax every day? I think some things you have to do every day. Like most of the
Yeah.
time, you have to do purposeful work. That's a given. I think for myself, I would view my example as on a week basis. I just want to make sure that if I've had a busy week, spend the weekend in relaxing, turn down that purposeful work light bulb, and turn up the relaxation a little bit, turn up the interaction a little bit on the weekends. I can't interact with everybody every day, but there are days you can. You can apply it on a monthly basis too, but then on a yearly basis, it's kind of hard to keep track of. You can't remember so many events in your life all year. It's too much, right? So for me, I think weekly basis is reasonable, I think. Weekly or monthly.
Yeah. In my case, what happens is you are right. I mean, I've always been, I enjoy introspection. I spend a lot of time living in the past. I don't know why I do this. my mind goes to happy memories from the past a lot, right? While planning for the future, I like doing it in 3 months or in quarters. I sort of look at my year as quarters. So Jan to just like a company would kind of thing. I sort of like that framework. So towards the end of December, I like to think of, hey, Jan, Feb, and March. Is there any purposeful work that I want to focus on? Just like a hand, like one or two. So if I just get them done, then I kind of feel like I'm on track. And I sort of write this stuff down, right? So at the end of the quarter, I can look at my notes and see, hey, okay, did I check off all of these things? And if I haven't, then I don't let it stress me out, but then it sort of carries on to the next thing and I see how I want to fix things.
You know what? I did this too in the beginning of 2020. Write down what I would like to do. It's not so much as a New Year's resolution as it is things that I would like to do this year that would make me happy. And I'm looking at it right now. One, make an 8-track album totaling about 35 minutes of music. How many minutes I have created? 0. Okay. I mean, I created music maybe about 5, but it really wouldn't call it, really wouldn't call it a whole completed song. Okay. Number 2 was contribute to open source projects, which I really did this year. So
Yeah,
not bad.
yeah,
Not bad.
yeah.
Then I written down, write one blog post per month on
Yeah.
my technical blog. Nope. I did like 6 blog posts in the first 3 months of the year and then it stopped.
But you did good. So you had momentum. You started off the year with the right footing.
Yeah.
It's just so happened that other things got in the way later in the year, and
Yeah. I set
you didn't
myself a
write
goal
anymore.
to read 15 books this year. And audiobooks count as books, in my opinion. That's my rule, whether anybody agrees with it or not. I think I've gotten through like 6 or 7 only. Yeah, I'm not going to do 15 books this year. But that's the point, right? That's what you were saying. Like you just write down something that at any frequency, like you do 3 months, I just did it in a year. And they don't happen sometimes, but at least it didn't happen. I'm not worried about it. I'm just amused by it now. I'll probably write another one.
So yeah, I mean, so coming back to the four light bulbs, right? Like I was saying that the nice thing about this concept is that it gives you a chance to recalibrate every so often and make sure you come back on track, right? And I think that so as I was saying earlier on in my 20s and early 30s, I was struggling. I was struggling with basically setting my light bulbs right, and I was trying to just burn all of them too hot. And I was just my base level of stress and anxiety was way too high. It's not a fun place to be in. But in the last few years, things have been a lot better, and I think that one of the silver linings of COVID is that it has sort of forced all of us to slow down, and like you can't travel, so that it just take some a lot of the options are sort of forcibly taken away from you, right? So it forced me to sort of look at how I'm spending time and reprioritize the things that I should be concentrating on. So the last few years definitely have been much better for me, and I think that they're mainly due to three reasons. Okay, so the first reason is that a few years ago we had our kid, and we started a family. And even though I've been very career focused and very ambitious in at work, and even though I am sort of at a high point in my career, I was in a way forced to get my foot off the gas. It was a very hard thing for me to do. I struggled with when my son was born. I did struggle with this for a while, because that feeling that I had this feeling that I'm winning at work, having to forcibly get your foot off the gas and slow down. It was actually quite challenging. I mean, it is. I battled it in my mind. It did cause a little bit of stress, but the point is that you eventually realize that, hey, kids, especially in their early years, they grow so fast, they change so fast, that right now he's going to soon be 3. He's very soon going to be out of the toddler phase.
It's so important. If you miss this phase now, if you don't calibrate now and put your priorities right immediately, this phase is going to go. It's gone forever. Your child will never be a 3-year-old again after this moment has passed. And that is something that people like I consider myself regretting later. I will regret it if I don't have it, because to me that is very important.
Exactly, exactly. So even though I struggled with getting my foot off the gas, I can at least tell myself that look, for a few years, it is important for me to focus on family, because it affects, I can, observing him will make me more happy, and like you said, I don't want to regret later. And also, the more time I can spend on him, it'll directly affect his development as well. It sort of, it helps him with his development in a way. So yeah, so basically the last few years sort of turned down my work and hobbies. With hobbies, I've just been focusing on a couple of things. Because of COVID, the band had to essentially go on a hiatus. We had to, there were no more places to do live shows, so that was sort of, in a way, forcibly taken away from me. I didn't like it initially, but I sort of, I embrace it now. And so I essentially, in the last couple of years, I have turned down my work light bulb, and my hobbies, essentially turned up my health and family and friends bulbs. So that's been good. And and what I've been telling myself is that I don't need this FOMO. Like, I don't need this fear of missing out, because this need not be uh, a permanent change in my calibration, my light bulbs. I mean, I can do this for like, eventually, once the kid is like 6 7 years old, things will come to a stable place. And at that time, if I really want to focus again on career or hobbies, then I can reevaluate at that time.
You'll have to see how it goes, right? um,
Mm,
my older one is 6, and yeah, he is a lot more independent. And now what happens is that you have like a little friend more than a child, and
right.
these
Mm,
basic needs. You have a friend in you now who is a
yeah.
really fun friend, and now you want to do so many more things that you'll have to recalibrate at that time, right?
Yeah. So that's my first reason. So the first thing that has helped me recalibrate is, when I started a family. The second thing is that now that we are in midlife, right? Um, you know, this phrase that time is the most precious resource. It is a very cliched statement, and we've always heard it from, everybody tells you this. Your elders tell you this, that time is the most important resource. Use it wisely. But it became a cliche essentially. But now that we are in midlife, I feel that in my bones that time is a precious resource. So I've been hearing it all my life, but all of a sudden, in the last couple of years, that thing is, I really really feel it.
You know what? I think in your 30s, you're hit by this wave of like mortality. In your 20s, you feel immortal. In your 30s, you're like, what? I mean, like, oh my God, look at all that. I'm not saying we have like particularly health problems per se, but I'm just saying like the possibility of it happening becomes very real.
Yeah, because you're growing old, your parents are growing old, so are your friends. I mean, everybody just has much lesser time for each other. I mean, like, think about it, right? Um, our friend, for example, our good friend and bandmate Baski, we used to hang out all the time, right? And you guys were roommates in graduate school. But now, if you think about it, he lives in Bangalore. We may meet each other maybe 8 to 10 times for the rest of our lives. I mean, think about that for a second. We hung out all the time, like we're essentially like brothers, and now we're sitting here saying that, man, I might just see Bhaskar 5 to 10 times until we all kick the bucket. That is pretty dire in some ways.
I came across this book and I've been meaning to go and read the whole thing, but I heard it in a podcast, and it's called 4,000 Weeks, which is basically the amount of time we have on average as people
Oh,
on this
jeez,
earth.
man. This totally, like the existential crisis I've been having is not enough. This totally plays into that even more.
Yes, you have 4,000 weeks. And the book is called 4,000 Weeks Time Management for Mortals. And it's by a guy called Oliver Berkman. It'll be in the show notes. But since human lifespan is so limited and the number of things you can do are infinite, right? So this whole thing about writing a checklist, having a zero inbox policy, going through this, being highly productive and this and that. It's like a losing game. You're going to
Yeah.
run out of time at some point. Sometimes do things for the sake of doing it. Okay. So if he cites in this podcast that if you build model trains, do it because you want to build a model train. Don't do it because you want to start an Instagram channel on model trains. Don't put, uh, I think he calls it, don't instrumentalize everything. Don't do that. Just do something because you like doing it. Don't make a checklist and try to check things off of that. Just do it because it makes you happy. There is a lot of value in that.
Right. So basically, when you have mortality staring right at your face, it definitely helps you straighten out your priorities.
It's been staring at your face since the day you were born.
Yeah, you just realize it. You just realize it 40 years later.
So I have to quote Time by Pink Floyd, right? The
Yeah,
sun is the same in a relative way, but you're older.
exactly. Wow. Racing around to come up behind you again.
Yep.
So having a kid, number one, has helped me recalibrate. Mortality has helped me recalibrate. And the third thing is sort of plays in from mortality, really, but it is a renewed focus on health, is what I want to call it. Okay, so when you're like you just said, when you're in your teens and 20s, you feel invincible, right? You feel like you're going to live a million years. I used to do crazy stuff, like, I mean, because I was trying to run all my bulbs really hot, like work and hobbies and everything. What ended up happening because of that is, on Fridays, I would party with a bunch of my friends until like 2 or 3 in the morning, drinking, playing poker, playing board games,
Yeah.
all of that until 3 in the morning. And then I would wake up at 6, basically, with after 3 hours of sleep. I would wake up at 6 and then go running for like 8 miles with my friends in a completely hungover state. And when you're 21, 22, you can pull that off without problem. I mean, 3 hours of sleep, hungover, not a big deal. And I used to be perfectly fine. I had like all my muscles and bones, I had worked fine. I had no knee issues, none of that. But today, if I don't sleep a full 8 hours, even if 8 hours becomes 7 hours, I feel like a train wreck the next day.
Yeah. Totally agree with you there. I remember in College Station, used to go drink at these bars till 2 o'clock and then go to this pizza by the slice place and then eat that. And after that, right across the street, there was this place they used to do sake bombs, which are basically like sake dipped in Red Bull. And then they
Brilliant.
used to do reverse sake bombs, which were like
Oh, God damn it.
Red Bull dipped in sake.
That is grad life creativity for you at its finest.
So, oh my God. And then sometimes we used to walk down to like McDonald's and get chicken fingers dipped in ranch and go to this friend's place. And we used to watch like horror movies at like 3 in the morning while eating chicken fingers.
And being
And
hungover.
and it used to be like hilarious because everybody's like had to way too many beers and sakes or whatever. And that's when I saw the movie The Ring.
Oh,
And
God.
even now, it is supposed to be really scary, but every time I see that movie, I start laughing because I remember what we did. Like, everybody's passing comments on the movie while we're
Dude,
watching it.
that is so funny. A lot of all the connoisseurs of horror movies, horror films, call Ring one of the most scariest movie, and you just turned it into a
Oh
comedy.
my God, it's ruined for me. Like, such a good movie. But no, I don't think it's ruined. I think it's amazing because I think of like really fun times when I think of The Ring. Actually, when I turned 30, I decided I'm going to have myself a good meal because I don't know
Mhm.
why. I feel like maybe my days of immortality are over or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I had like 1.2 pound prime grade steak, like two sausages, which probably total to a pound of sausage, two skewers of shrimp, a bottle of wine, two bottles of beer, and cake. This was my lunch when I turned
God.
30.
My mom has been listening to to our podcast, and I think at this point, with all the meat that you said, she's going to hit pause and go take a shower and cleanse her off, and come back and listen, I think.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible. I can't do this. Yeah, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. So there's this. I mean, so I think, to sum up the health part, right? I mean, there was this. I'm not really sure where I came across this, but came across this phrase, but it stuck with me for a very long time. And what the phrase says, a healthy person has many wishes, but a sick person has just one.
Nice.
If you're healthy, then you want to travel here, you want to do this, you want to do that. But the minute you come down even with a small tiny little cold, and all that is in your mind is, oh my god, man, I just can't wait to, the only wish you have is that I just want to get back to myself, my healthy self. You know what, I want to wrap up this whole thing with one last thought.
Yeah.
Okay. I recently came across this story from the Mahabharata. Okay, so Mahabharata is one of the Indian epics, and there's this story where Yudhishthir, who is the oldest of the Pandavas, he is asked by the god of death, Yama. He's asked to answer a few questions in order to save the lives of his brother, and he has to answer them satisfactorily. And one of the questions he is asked is, "What is the most desired form of happiness?" And he replies, "Contentment." Right? I mean, I think this is very profound. First of all, I think the question itself is such a good question. He's not asking, what is happiness? I mean, that's,
Did he
I
answer
think that's,
correctly?
happiness can mean, I think it is I mean, I don't know if he answered correctly, but it is, I think it's a great, in my book, he did. Like, in the sense
Yeah.
that I think it's a great answer. It kept me thinking for a while because, see, first of all, I think the question is great. Okay. It's not asking what is happiness, because happiness can be many, many things. But the question is, what is the most desired form of happiness? And I think that contentment is a great answer, because even when it comes to contentment, I feel like I need to train my brain to experience contentment. Just overlaying this over the concept of the 4 light bulbs, I've been trying to practice contentment in when it comes to each of my quadrants, each of my 4 light bulbs. When it comes to work, not just asking for more and more and more, but sort of introspecting, looking back, and experiencing contentment with my hobbies, with relationships and friends. And just, contentment, being thankful, I think it's sort of the whole thing. And I think if you don't stop by and think about it and feel content with your life every so often, then it's just going to go away, and you're going to perpetually keep seeking happiness, which will never come.
Yeah.
So I think contentment is actually a great way of thinking of happiness as.
That's a nice story.
Shall we call it on that?
Yeah. I'm going to go get lunch, and you're going to go get your meeting done, I suppose.
Yeah, meeting and then a beer.
Yeah, you earned it.
All right.
You attended a meeting.
Yes.
Every
you
meeting
did too.
requires a beer.
That's true. Thanks for listening. You can find transcripts and show notes at www.halflife.show.
We'd love for you to leave us a review on your favorite podcast app, and also write to us on Twitter @HalfLifeShow.